Hello, ladies. Welcome to the live. I wonder why I'm looking all grainy. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. Hopefully, you can see me. Hopefully, you can hear me through my new fancy little microphone. Y'all, how have you been enjoying the podcast? I'm super excited to have finally launched it on my birthday, September 18th. Today, I released episode 7. Talking about people pleasing and boundaries. So if you haven't already checked that out, definitely do that. As you're hopping on, say hello. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay in the comments. Today I'm going to be talking about how to build better habits. I'm not going to be on here long. Y'all let me know as you're hopping on if you can hear me well. If you can see me well, I can hear myself through these, but I just want to make sure that the audio is good. So I'm going to be talking about better habits. And at the end of the day, whatever your goal is, I don't care if it's to gain weight, lose weight, get tone, bigger booty, whatever it is, your goals comes down to your habits and how you can manage your brain. I'm not going to talk a lot about that today, but in order to have habits that are consistent, you're going to have to manage your brain. You're going to have to manage your mind from distractions, negotiation, procrastination, negative talk that's not going to help you reach your goals. So I'm just going to give you a few hacks. I will tell you guys that one of the best books that I have ever read, or actually I think I listened to this book, but it was Badass Habits by Jen Sincero or something like that. I think I've read all of her books or listened to all of her books. You Are a Badass, You Are a Badass at Making Money, Badass Habits. I loved her books. So if you have not listened to or read the book Badass Habits, that's a good one to watch or to listen to. And then Atomic Habits is another one that talks about habits and how you can build better habits. And all of these things are so simple. They can, literally, sometimes I feel like, when it comes to building habits, it's like we know the thing to do, but again, it comes down to how can I apply what I know, and that's the brain management. So y'all let me know if you can hear me well. I see 3 people are watching. I want to make sure that my mic is on and working properly before I dive in. So just to kind of give you an update on the Fit Figure Formula, we are in week 4. We're just starting week 4. I had a call with the ladies last night. I actually coach another group that I'm going to be doing right after this. And so week 4, so the ladies have been practicing weighing their food, they're understanding proper food portions, how much they're normally eating, and we are learning first. They have started implementing their power hour, their workouts, and this all happened incrementally, right? And so going into week 4, week 5, we're really going to start refining our process and getting more specific now that they have a solid knowledge of food portions and things like that. Last night, I'm trying to think about what did we talk about last night? What did we talk about last night? I taught them the self-coaching model. And this is a way to manage your brain. And this would be an awesome, lesson, what I taught them last night, self-coaching with habits, right? Because again, in order for you to be consistent with your habits, consistent, not perfect, but consistent, you're going to have to manage your brain. Tina says yes. Okay, I guess that's a good sign that you can hear me good. Okay. So, I am thinking about actually doing a masterclass sometime next week, y'all. Let me know if y'all would be interested in coming. I'm going to be doing a free masterclass, and I'm going to be talking about diet phases, because so many times ladies are either skipping meals or they're intermittent fasting, they're trying to eat less and less, and I want to explain the diet phases a little bit better. For those of you who haven't already seen my live where I talked about diet phases, this is going to be on a Zoom room, You're going to be able to ask me questions, and I can kind of show you a little bit better by sharing my screen what I mean, and show you some client case studies on how my clients are eating more to lose weight and not less. I think yesterday, maybe today, I might have posted one of my clients who she's down 15 pounds. We still have a few more weeks to work together, and her weight, her measurements are going down. And she comes on the call. She's like, "Are you sure you want me to eat more?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's working. It's working." So this masterclass, y'all, let me know if you are interested in joining. I like it. It'll be a little bit more intimate. That way I can like really answer your questions. You can maybe do some coaching. And then I'll have a special offer at the end. I'm not about fluff, y'all. So I hate when I go on those master classes and like they be talking and then I'll be saying nothing. I ain't got time for that. We're going to get to it. So make sure that if you do join, that you're on the call. And I'm going to add a lot of value and kind of answer a lot of your questions. So let's go ahead and get into this live. I would appreciate a diet face. Yes. Okay, Melinda says yes. Okay, cool. I'll drop the link. I gotta set it up. The tech always just works my nerve, but I will set it up, you guys, and I'll drop the link for you to join the masterclass after I set that up. So, okay, pulling up my notes. Okay, so how do we build new habits? So first, you already know you got to have a goal. You got to have a way to measure if you're getting better. Part of what we don't do well is we'll have this really abstract goal to say, I'm going to get consistent with my workouts. That might be a habit that you want to work on. Or I want to, get 7,000 steps every day. But then either you don't track that, or if you mess up 1 week, then you feel like you've messed up the whole time and then you don't go back to it. You don't set some parameters. So sometimes I'll ask a client and they'll say, okay, my goal is to get consistent with 3 to 4 workouts. And I'm like, okay, well, when will you know that you can mark that off of your to-do list? Because there are going to be weeks where you miss that. And what we do is we'll make the 1 week that we miss mean that we're not consistent. What we don't do is take the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks that we were really consistent and then say, yeah, I'm consistent. We're always like waiting for like, yeah, I did good these 3 weeks, but I don't know if this is going to continue. And we don't use those 3 weeks as evidence for our brain that we are consistent. But we'll take 1 week where we missed one and say, this is why I'm not consistent. And this is why your belief about yourself and your identity is really important, because you're going to be looking for what you already believe about yourself. And it's not that 1 week that you missed is more important than the other 3 weeks. It's just that that's what you were looking for. So it's really important that you set a really specific goal, but then also that you understand that like the goal is really like 80%. The goal isn't, I'm going to work out 4 times every week for 52 weeks. That ain't the goal. That's not going to happen. And you'll always be chasing that goal and feel like I'm not consistent, because you're never probably going to do that 52 weeks in a row. So where can you give yourself some leeway? So I will say, okay, out of 52 weeks, think about how many of those weeks would you give yourself to miss? To maybe miss, maybe if your goal is 4, to hit, only 1 time or twice or 3 times or no times. How many of those 52 weeks will you allow yourself to miss before you say, before you determine like either I am consistent or not? Because again, we set the bar at perfection, and then we'll always say I'm not consistent because I didn't do this every single solitary week for 52 weeks. Like that is not even, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you gotta have a goal that's actually hittable. Create a hittable goal. Okay. So that's number 1, like getting really clear on what that looks like. So let's say your goal is 4 workouts, and let's just do it by month because that sounds like a little bit easier. And depending on where you are, if you know you haven't been working out at all, then maybe say at least 1 week out of these 4 weeks. And I know that that doesn't sound like it's enough, because that's what we do too, is like the small things. We start out with small habits. It ain't enough, so we don't do any of it. But allow the small things to be enough. And really that goal is actually not small at all. I'm going to tell you a little story about my client who I coached last week. She is a new mom, okay? She has a new baby. And she was saying that we were coaching on the fact that she was like, I want to at least hit my water, eat whole foods, and get my walks in. And to her, that was the bare minimum. And I said, well, let's break this down, because this is where part of our goals go wrong. Let's talk about eating whole foods. We're talking about a week, right? 7 days. You have 3 to 4 meals per day. And just that alone, that's not 3 goals. Like, eating whole foods as one goal is like 15 goals in and of itself. Every single solitary day, 3 meals, 3 meals and a snack. Like, that's multiple things that you're actually counting as only one thing. And then when we miss it, we feel like, oh, that should have been so simple. But I'm like, you have a newborn and you're not getting enough sleep. And these are not excuses. I don't want you to think that, like, I don't want you to set goals or have high expectations, but I do want you to understand that, like, sometimes what we say is just simple. This should be super simple. If you break down the steps to prepping your meals, to grocery shopping, to planning, to prepping it out, to taking your lunch, making dinner and breakfast and snacks, that's a whole lot. So my point here is that when you make your goal, or when you set your goal, you want to make sure that it's actually simple. You want to make sure that your goal is not 15 goals wrapped up in one, and then you're telling yourself that this should be simple. Okay? So next one is, what can you stop instead of start? So when we think about setting or creating new habits, we always think about adding something. What can I add? And I do like that philosophy in terms of, like, adding food to your diet. It will naturally displace the other stuff that you don't want. But in this context, I want you to think about, what is it that I can stop doing? Because that might actually be like lower hanging fruit. So let's say I always go through the drive-through at Starbucks on my way home from work. And I know that what I'm getting probably is like a whole bunch of sugar, a whole bunch of fat, and that's probably not how my, highest and best self wants to show up. How can I just stop doing that? Right? That could be a habit as well. Like, I'm no longer going to go through the Starbucks line when I get off from work. Isn't that easy? Just to stop doing something? Give yourself credit for that. Give yourself credit for instead of having a bowl of candy on your desk, right? Trade that in for something else, or just like take the bowl and put it in the hallway or something like that. And so that way the habit could be, I'm not going to grab, these little mini Snickers that are on my desk every time I get bored. Make a habit to stop doing something. Maybe it might be, I had a client who would drink Pepsi all the time. Maybe your habit is, instead of me drinking 3 Pepsis every day, I'm only going to have like 1 a day with a goal of like once or twice a week. Right? So what can you stop doing? Let that be evidence for your brain. Allow it to be easy. Allow it to be that simple, because we always want to do hard. Allow it to be simple. So if you're watching the replay, if you're watching live, what is it that you know that you can stop doing? That would be so like simple. I don't want to say easy, but simple to stop doing. Let me know in the chat. What could you stop doing as a habit? Next one is setting boundaries. So I just dropped a podcast episode 7 on the Fit Figure Formula podcast. So y'all definitely check that out. Matter of fact, I'm going to drop the link to the podcast. Let me drop that, paste. Boom. I just put that in the chat, y'all. So if you haven't already, definitely download the podcast, share the podcast. I've had several, I think I have like 300 and something downloads. I don't know if that's good or not, but I'm very excited and proud of those 300 in the last couple weeks. So y'all check out episode 7. I talked about people pleasing. I talked about setting boundaries. And so setting boundaries is going to be huge in terms of your creating some new habits. What boundaries do you need to set? I want you to think about, where do you need to set boundaries around your energy, around your time, around your distractions? How can you protect your goals by setting boundaries? Sometimes we feel like boundaries might be uncomfortable to do, or they have to come with conflict, right? This is all internal work that you must do in order to like have your back when you set boundaries. I work with my clients inside of the formula regarding setting boundaries. But if you want to create a new habit, you're going to have to protect it. Think about, what's my new habit? How am I going to protect this time and energy that I'm going to have to put in to creating this habit? And it doesn't have to be this big thing. I've coached a couple of clients in the last few weeks about making consistency and showing up for yourself and like taking care of yourself this big thing that's going to take so much time, right? It doesn't have to be this big thing that takes so much time. It could literally just be thoughts, decisions, right? Because decisions are just thoughts. So I might need to just plan something, plan my meals, and I might need to block off 30 minutes to do that a day. Like, that's not a ton of time, but we make it seem like it's this big thing. Allow it to be simple for yourself, okay? And set some boundaries around the time that you need to just get your mind together, okay? So check out that podcast, episode 7. So I don't even know what number I'm on, but the next one is act like the CEO. So I really think that this verbiage really helps my clients when I talk to them about, you are the CEO of your health journey. You're the CEO of your life, right? And I don't know what that is. It just kind of makes you sit up straight like, yeah, I'm the boss, right? I am the boss. So acting like your CEO self, what does a CEO do? A CEO has to make decisions, right? And so seeing it as your job to make decisions about your health journey, because a lot of times we're just avoiding making decisions. We're avoiding deciding exactly what time I'm going to go to do my workout. I'm avoiding picking the meals that I want to eat. Sometimes when ladies come into the Facebook group, I ask them if they need any help, and they're like, I don't know what to cook, or I need some new recipes. And I'm like, we have the World Wide Web, like literally at your fingertips. Like, that ain't the problem. The problem is not you don't know a new recipe, because there's plenty of new recipes that you could try on the internet. It doesn't have to be the best of the best. Like, that ain't the problem. There's tons of new recipes online. It's just overwhelming to pick one. It's not that there aren't any there. It's just, you got to be the CEO and go in there and just say, yeah, that looks good. Close it up. Don't get overwhelmed and try to do all the things, try to change all of your, food first week or something like that. Just pick one new recipe to try this week. It could be that simple. So allow it to be simple. You are the CEO, and that means that I have got to make some decisions And when I make those decisions, I have my own back because I'm setting boundaries, and I'm okay with my boundaries. I allow other people not to be okay with my boundaries, and I do what works for me. Okay, so another thing, changing your vocabulary. So I'll probably do a podcast episode about this. Here's a couple that you can kind of try on. So when you are talking about your journey, and this is why coaching is really powerful, because this is something that you can't Google. When I listen to my clients talk, I hear how they frame their story and whether or not they are putting themselves at a disadvantage or putting themselves at the advantage. And the way that we tell our story is very telling. It's telling about how much of our power we're giving away to other things, and how much we believe in ourselves and how much we believe that it can happen. So I want you to try on some, just switching up some words, and just notice, like, how am I telling my story? Am I telling my story from a place of like, this is happening to me, I can't seem to get this done? Or am I telling my story in a way that puts me at the advantage? So let me give you some examples. I talked about this before, managing versus struggling. So I want to encourage you just to avoid saying like, I'm struggling with emotional eating, or I'm struggling with consistency. Are you really? Or are you managing it? I'm managing emotional eating sounds way more empowered. It sounds like you're the CEO. It sounds like you're the one making the decisions, because you are. And it doesn't give you this vibe of like, I'm failing at this, I'm not doing a good job at this. And when you always tell the story from the point of I'm struggling, you're probably always going to be struggling because you don't give yourself credit for doing well. You'll always be looking for the week that didn't go well, so that you can continue to subconsciously tell the story that like, I'm still struggling. But what if you're managing it instead? So this is very important, to change your vocabulary. So I said earlier that in order to change your habit, you're going to have to change your mindset. Of course, you already know everything is about mindset. So starting to change your vocabulary. Another way that you can do this is like, I encourage my clients to say, I used to blank. So for example, I used to be an emotional eater, or I used to skip my workouts because I was procrastinating. I used to do that. I don't care if it was just yesterday. I used to do that. I used to be that type of person that didn't keep commitments to myself. But it creates some separation between the identity that you're building, which is the CEO self, which is, you know, your highest and best version of you, versus the past version of you who maybe didn't know that she had a choice, who maybe wasn't yet the highest and best version. And when you start changing your vocabulary and watching how you say things, you will start to notice your story, and you'll start to notice your choices that you're making. And you can make better choices because you are speaking out of power versus always telling the story as if you don't have a choice, and like these things are happening to you and you just can't figure out how to get over it. So those are a couple that you can kind of try on in terms of changing your vocabulary, so that when it comes down to your habits, I'm more empowered. I'm not struggling to get in my workouts, right? I am, I guess you could say I'm managing to get into my workouts, but that doesn't make that much sense. But y'all get the point. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want you to tell your story from a point of like victimhood. Like, you're in control. You're the one that's making the decisions about what you put in your mouth. Like, you are making this decision. All right, next one is setting up your environment. And y'all let me know if you have any questions. You can let me know what questions you have, about making new habits, but also where are you struggling with creating new habits? What's keeping you from creating new habits and letting it stick? You can let me know that in the chat. That would be helpful, and I can maybe help you kind of workshop that. If you're watching the replay, you can also do that as well. So, setting up your environment. This one is this classic. Like, listen, your environment tells a lot about you. So, if you were to go into someone's house and they were a hoarder and they had like stuff everywhere, right? And like kitchen was a mess, like you can't even step, there's like not a clean place on the floor. That says a lot about your brain, right? It can say multiple things. But your environment is so important. So think about your CEO self. What kind of environment is most conducive to your CEO self? How does she manage her life? What does her refrigerator, her pantry look like? Are you, when you come home and you got groceries, are you just throwing everything in there and then hoping that you come back later? Because what typically happens is all them vegetables done gone bad in the refrigerator, right? Can you buy some cute little containers so that, get your kids to help you? I like taking my grapes off the vine and putting them in this little container and like presenting the environment in a way that I'm like, oh, look, I got grapes, right? Because it's a little click, it's cute. And I find myself eating more grapes, right? If you do that, for example, with a cookie jar, and you have this on your counter, it's a cute little cookie jar, and you see the cookies, and it's there on the counter, and you just eat cookies. So set your environment up in a way that it's going to be conducive to drinking your water. I think there's a girl that I follow. Her name is Corinne, I believe. And she talks a lot about habits too. And she's just like, she said, put your keys in your like lunch. Like if you're taking your lunch, trying to build the habit of like taking your lunch to work. Whenever you come home, right? Put your keys in your lunchbox so that like, oh shoot, you can't go nowhere without your keys. Don't forget to take your lunch, right? That'll be your reminder to take your lunch. Okay. So setting up your environment. One thing that I've done, because I have some fiber right here on my desk. I got a little ashwagandha. I have a multivitamin, and if I keep this stuff in the cabinet, I'm less likely to have it. But because it's like right here, and I need to find a way to like, display it a little cuter than just having the bottles on the thing. But I remember to take it because it's here, because it's visible. So think about how you can increase the visibility of the things that you want to do more often. So that could be moving your treadmill from the basement to a more visible spot in your house. It could just be having your water bottles on your desk, and get more than one water bottle, y'all. Because sometimes we're like, oh, I didn't have my water bottle. I'm like, girl, get like 3 or 4 water bottles. Have one in your car. Have one at your work. Like, have them strategically placed where you normally are so that you can set your environment up for success. So think about how you can set your environment up so that you just have a natural affinity to do whatever it is that you want to complete. Okay. And then the last one I'll talk about is creating a routine. So a lot of us just need a system, and we just need like some structure. If you feel like you're all over the place in your time management, that means your mind management's all over the place. And we just need like some structure, right? So create some structure for yourself and create some routines. So start small, right? You don't want to try to change too many things at one time, but it could be one of my favorite. To me, I always start with mindset. So if I need to create a routine, I start with mindset. So my morning routine, like if I really need to be productive with work, I'm like, okay, let me do my mindset. So I get my notebook, I write the word inspiration, and I make sure I listen to something inspiring. Then I write the word gratitude, and I literally just start brain dumping what I'm grateful for. And that kind of morphs into like affirmations, like really strong, powerful things that I want to think about myself and what I will declare over myself in my life. And then I write the word intention, and I write down like 2 or 3 things that, like, if I got these 2 or 3 things done, I'd feel really good about this day and my productivity. So starting out with a routine. So that means, if y'all know anything about standard operating procedures, right? Have an SOP, standard operating procedure, for how you do things. So maybe it is your meal planning process, right? I have my clients decide, okay, how many times a week do I want to plan out my meals? Okay, if I'm a 1 time a week person, okay, cool. When is that going to be? Friday at 2 p.m.? Okay, great. How am I going to start this process? Am I going to start by looking on Pinterest? Am I going to be keeping a running list of things that I'm running out of so that I can see what I need immediately? Like, create a process and have it documented. Because sometimes we forget what works, y'all. We forget what works. So having some like templates in your mind of like, hey, this is how I get this done, so that when you repeat something again and again and again, what is that? That's consistency, right? That's what a routine is. It's like doing the same thing again and again in a similar sequence. That's consistency. So creating a very simple routine. And the routine that I just told you just now was just all thoughts. Like, I have my inspiration, I think about gratitude, I think about affirmations, I write down what I'm going to do, I decide what I'm going to do. That's literally just thinking, y'all. So your routine doesn't have to be something big. It can just be like, this is the manner in which I will decide this, or this is the manner in which I will execute this habit, right? So hopefully that was helpful. We talked about stopping something instead of starting, which should be the easiest of them all, or the simplest of them all. Setting boundaries, acting like your CEO self, changing your vocabulary, setting up your environment, creating a routine. And then also in the beginning, I talked about really making sure that whatever habit you're trying to create, that number 1, you're tracking it, but number 2, make sure that it's actually one habit and that it's not like 15 habits bundled up into one. If you say, I want to eat whole foods daily, think about the fact that you have, like, the steps to that is groceries, prepping, planning, 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. Like, that's a lot of things. So make sure that your habit is simple and that it's doable. You want to pick doable habits and then go from there. You don't have to change everything all at one time. It's better for you to do less, more consistently, than to try to pick a whole bunch of stuff. Don't treat your lifestyle change like a challenge, because if you do, it will be a challenge. It'll be hard and it won't be sustainable. Yep. Melinda said, I am confused about eating fruit. Is it good for you or not? Yeah. Fruit is good for you. I don't know why people say it's not good for you. Now, let's say you had kidney disease and you're on dialysis. Not so much you don't want to eat fruit. Like, people who are on dialysis, like, the opposite of a healthy diet is basically what they are prescribed, because their kidneys don't function properly and don't filter out like potassium and phosphorus and things like that. So, but if you are a healthy individual, fruit is healthy for you. You want to just make sure that you are coupling that with some protein. You always need to eat some protein every time you sit down to eat. My clients already know that. And portion it out. You want to eat whole fruit. So it's like picking the whole fruit, like an apple versus applesauce, more often than not. I'm not saying you can't have applesauce, but yeah, so it is totally fine. I'm managing emotional eating. Yes, you are managing it. You are in control of this. As you always tell us, find a win in anything you are trying to accomplish. Yes, you always have to find a win, and there's always a win, because whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. Paula said, stop eating after 9 p.m. Stop eating so late at night. Some of y'all are eating so late at night because you're not eating enough during the day. Are you eating enough during the day? Are you skipping meals? Are you hitting your protein goal? Are you hitting your calorie goal? That might be why you're so hungry at night. Like, don't take your hunger at nighttime as like, ooh, something's wrong with me. Maybe it's a message. Just maybe. Listen, if you guys are wanting to work with me and have me provide that structure for you to understand how to structure your meals, how to hit your protein and your calories every day without having to be in MyFitnessPal every day, the link is pinned in the comments. You can apply to work with me. If you want to check out the guides section in the Facebook group, there's a ton of graphs and other client wins that you can kind of go through where my clients are seeing great results and they're not having to eat this much. Okay. And I'm going to be interviewing a client, the same client that I just posted about yesterday or earlier today, where she has lost 15 pounds. I'm going to be interviewing her. Well, I need to ask her first, but I think she's going to say yes. But the next podcast episode, episode 8, I will be interviewing Jill. So Jill's going to come on and you can listen to that and you can let her hear, or you can hear her talk about what her reservations were before she started working with me, and the fact that she's worked with me a couple of times now, and Jill looks amazing and has transformed. Now she's an affirmation coach, y'all, which is so awesome because she, when I first met her, was on a self-love journey, and she was able to share her story on the podcast. So that's going to be coming up next week. So I can't wait for y'all to hear more client stories so that y'all don't just have to take my word for it. You can actually hear it from the clients themselves. So I'm going to be doing more of that as well. So thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you next time. See you soon.